Darrell Brooks. They do not believe it was terrorism or that he was targeting the Christmas parade, but that he was leaving the scene of a domestic dispute as police were arriving on that scene.
There's no pursuit that led up to this incident. This is not a terrorist event.
Police Chief Daniel Thompson says Brooks is being charged initially with 5 counts of intentional homicide. The victims who died ranged in age from 52 to 81 years old. Alex Stone, ABC News.
Police say Brooks was arrested last month for using an SUV to allegedly run over the mother of his child. The prosecution will give its final closing rebuttal tomorrow in the trial of 3 Georgia men accused of killing Ahmaud Arbery. The White House investing $1.5 billion to address inequity in the healthcare system.
With these funds, we will invest in our National Health Service Corps and our Nurse Corps. Together, these healthcare professionals serve more than 23 million patients in our nation.
Vice President Harris says some of the funding will come from the American Rescue Plan. The House January 6th committee has subpoenaed 5 allies of former President Trump who planned the Stop the Steal rallies, including Roger Stone. Meet the new boss, same as the old boss. President Biden nominating Jerome Powell to a second term as Federal Reserve Chair, citing the way the Fed steered the nation through the pandemic.
I know for a lot of Americans, things are still very hard, very hard. But if you look at all the facts, you can only come to one conclusion. We've made enormous progress in this country.
Mr. Biden says Powell, who was appointed by former President Trump, has support from across the political spectrum. Stocks closed mixed today. You're listening to ABC News.
From the KMET Weather Center for Beaumont, Banning, and the Pass area, mostly sunny this afternoon and 75. Mostly cloudy tonight, low at 54. For tomorrow, partly sunny and breezy. Wind gusts around 25 miles an hour. High at 69 for Redlands this afternoon. Sunshine, 79. Mostly cloudy tonight, low at 54. And tomorrow, mostly cloudy and 72. For Palm Springs, mostly sunny this afternoon. High at 82. I'm Todd Edwards for Smart Talk 1490 KMET.
The Inner Voice Show is a dialogue between the host and the listeners about their relationships. This show is not an attempt to assess, diagnose, or treat any mental health or illness condition. Please consult your physician, psychiatrist, or psychotherapist for personal matters.
Inner Voice. A heartfelt chat with Dr. Foojan.
Well, hello. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Inner Voice Show. I'm Dr. Foojan Zeine, a psychotherapist and the author and the originator of the Awareness Integration Theory. And hello to Sharon, our director in our studio. This is a show about what matters most in our life, our minds, our thoughts, feelings, actions, relationships, and our fulfillment in this beautiful journey of life. Today, I will share with you the tip of the week about how anger can be destructive or constructive. Choose it, choose yours. And then I'm excited to bring you Eugene Popa. He's the president of Romanian Hypnosis Association and the international speaker and trainer. Eugene has been studying, practicing, and teaching hypnosis and other therapeutic personal development interventions for over 13 years. And he's been teaching it in Europe, USA, Latin America, and Asia. Then I will share with you a little bit about the anxiety we get before tying the knot or signing up for any big commitment. Yes, there's a high level of anxiety and how to handle it. Then I will bring you Dr. Sharon Grossman. She is the founder of the Exhausted to Extraordinary method, a 3-step method to unblock your mind, reshape your thinking, and return the joy to your work in 90 days. And we will be talking about her latest book, The 7E Solution to Burnout. I'd love to hear from you. So first of all, subscribe to my YouTube channel and my podcast and connect with me through all the social medias and go to foojanzeine.com and send me a message. I love to hear from you. But first, here's the tip of the week. This is to all of you therapists, counselors, coaches, and teachers out there, offering you my latest book, Awareness Integration Therapy. Clear the past, create a new future, and live a fulfilled life now.
Every person that reaches out to a psychotherapist, a counselor, or a coach is seeking to learn skills that can be utilized daily to foster a successful and fulfilling life. So this book offers an effective tool to all psychotherapists and coaches for supporting their clients to become aware of their inner process and to be accountable for it, as well as the results in all areas of their lives with the utmost level of care and acceptance. This is a must-read for all of you clinicians and coaches who desire to offer a deep therapeutic work in a brief period of time suited for this era.
Well, here's the tip of the week. Anger is an important emotion. It's powerful. It protects us. The emotion of anger gives a message to us, has messages for us. It might be setting boundaries, getting our rights, stand in front of others, hostility, fight for our freedom, be a source of competition, or move us through rough times. Reacting in an angry way destroys relationships. Everyone has some sort of reasoning or justification for acting or reacting in an angry way, but the price is very high. When anger is felt, respected, and taken into a proactive, non-hostile action, it can create movements, correct the path of relationships, and establish boundaries, laws, and structures. However, when it is thrown outwards with the intention of harm to the other person, it destroys relationships. This week, I've worked with many families where the dialogue between them has turned hostile and remained hostile. Instead of experiencing their love and affection, they were disrespecting each other, physically harming each other, losing trust and safety to be around each other. While they both just wanted to be heard and respected, most people tend to hold on to their anger because it makes them feel powerful and in control. Yet, most of their reaction shows up as actually powerless and out of control. Since when they hurt someone who they care for, they justify it as, I can't help it, I have no control, couldn't stop myself. Managing any emotion takes skills. Managing anger needs powerful skills, filters, and the know-how. Some people think that managing their anger means holding back and losing and facing the other one winning, actually. Healthy management of anger is to recognize the emotion, name it, understand the message it has for you, release it, and then take action accordingly to the result that you actually intend to create in whatever relationship that is. If the intention in the relationship is not to destroy or harm the other person, then cursing, swearing, intimidating, threatening, yelling, bullying has no room. These behaviors end relationships, do not foster intimacy and love. Sharing emotions, needs, requests, desires will bring people close to each other. So instead of justifying the emotion that leads to destructive behavior, we can own and acknowledge our emotion, give ourselves the right to be angry, but take the right away to act angrily toward others. Be angry and communicate appropriately to create a resolution with respect to yourself and others. So observe your way of being angry. Do you feel your anger when it is a minor frustration, or wait until you're in completely rage? Do you stop and listen to what the anger is saying to you? To have multiple emotions under the umbrella of anger. For example, fear, shame, anxiety. How do you release your anger? How do you communicate your anger? How do you take care of yourself when you're angry? And what prices do you have to pay for stuffing your anger inside and not saying anything? And what prices do you pay by reacting and blasting your anger toward everyone else? Do you have the skills to manage, share, and release your anger? Do you know where to get those skills? For more observational and integrative skills, go to my book, Life Reset, the Awareness Integration Path to the Life You Want. Thank you. Welcome back, everyone. I'm Dr. Foojan Zeine, and I'm excited to speak with Eugene Popa. He is the president of Romania Hypnosis Association and an international speaker and trainer. He has been studying, practicing, and teaching hypnosis and other therapeutic and personal development interventions for over 13 years. He's been teaching them in Europe, USA, Latin America, and Asia, and now with us in the United States. He's a certified master trainer in hypnosis, NLP, parts therapy, Hegelian therapy, resource therapy, and many other wonderful, mindful, and heartful interventions. And today we're just going to chat and enjoy each other's conversation about hypnosis and what it does to people's lives. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. I'm very, very excited. And thank you for the opportunity to be here with you and with your wonderful audience. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you for being with us from Romania.
Yeah, it's it doesn't sound so far away anymore because of internet and the speeds with which everything is moving. It's like one day you're here, the next day you're on a different planet almost now with everybody going to Mars.
That's true. That's true. I know that you have set up many types of conferences. You've created conferences around neurolinguistic programming, and now there's an upcoming one around hypnosis where people from around the world, including me, are going to be presenting on hypnosis and how how it affects people's lives and all the applications of hypnosis. So share a little bit about that with us.
Thank you so much for the question. So yes, we actually had last month in October, we had the NLP Masters Summit, and I believe it was world's largest event of the kind. We had 50 speakers from 22 countries. We had attendees from over 90 countries, which was, wow, mind-blowing for me. And now we are working, we are a few weeks away from the Hypnosis Masters Summit. And I'm super excited because we have over 40 speakers, yourself included, of course, presenting on topics related to hypnosis, like principles of hypnosis, techniques and methods of hypnosis that one can use for himself or herself or to help others. Also hypnosis for spirituality, the business side of hypnosis and of coaching. So all of these different topics are being covered with the summit we're organizing.
And who are the audience? Is it the public or is it the coaches, hypnotherapists, therapists?
Actually, it is a mix, but it's a mix which is heavily leaning towards professionals or people who are not necessarily professionals, but who are, interested in or working already with hypnosis. Because let's be honest, who's attending, a digital marketing event? Somebody who's interested in that, venue, or who's attending a knitting event. Somebody who's interested in knitting, right? So who's attending a hypnosis event? People who are actually practicing. And the idea with the summit was to offer both people who are starting with their hypnosis practice as well as seasoned professionals, to give them access to a wide range of techniques, methods, ideas, informations, practices, and principles that they can use to deepen their knowledge and to be more successful in what they do. And I believe we've achieved this goal with the summit.
I know my own experience. I've practiced hypnosis personally for myself, self-hypnosis, and have worked with hypnosis with different types of clients, whether I was working for depression, anxiety, traumas. My most fascinating experience was with someone who had a major reaction to drugs when they wanted to go to a dentist and have a dental surgery. And for some reason, she had heard that hypnosis can help. And I had just come out of another 100 hours of psychotherapy with Dr. Yapko, which, by the way, Michael Yapko will also be presenting in this presentation.
Yeah.
He's an amazing teacher. So I was learning from him in how to freeze your hand and then put it on your face so that your face will kind of get numb, and we can go into the surgery. So I went with the surgeon and this patient to the surgery room, to the dental office surgery room. And we did, obviously beforehand, I worked with the client for a couple of weeks in order for her to get ready to do this. And then we were there together, and she did this. And then the surgeon started, the dentist started with the surgery, and in the middle, she kind of like came out. And then the surgeon said, stopped, walked out of the room, and I came in, and, we started again with another 20 minutes, and we had her be in a space of really focusing. And then the surgeon came and completed. And it was so interesting because all three of us were completely shocked at the end. The surgeon came back and says, I thought this was just mumbo jumbo. Like, you really did this. And I said, to be honest with you, this is the first time I'm doing this in this method also. And I wasn't sure if it was going to work. And it was fascinating to me of what our mind can do and how hypnosis can support us in so many ways.
Absolutely. Actually, there's a documentary on made by BBC. People can find it on YouTube, and it's about hypnosis. And there is this lady who is like, kind of like the reporter basically, and they have this section in the video where they have this lady who's having a double extraction and double implant in the same setting, in one go, double extraction, double implant. And they gave her a pad and a pen, and they said, if the pain goes over 4, we'll sedate you. And there's this image, it's stuck in my brain because she has this pad, she's leaning back, she has this pad in her hand, and she's constantly like drawing 1, 0, like the level of discomfort she has. So if it goes over 3 or 4, then they'll do something. And then there's this image with them with a drill drilling in her gum, and she's 0, and her head is doing like that. Her head is banging like that because of the drill, and she just draws a 0 on the paper. It's like, Jesus, that is mind blowing for sure.
Yes, so hypnosis has a lot of different applications in the way that people can work with themselves, and especially in the world that anxiety is high, stress is high. I think that the hypnosis has also been supporting people in many, many layers in how to be able to calm themselves down, how to focus, how to, many people think that hypnosis is that you're kind of like some, unconscious. That's not what hypnosis is.
Or it's a superpower.
Yeah, it's a superpower. And so it is a way of actually, more than anything, Dr. Yapko kept saying, is really being a hyper focus on one area while you have the ability to disconnect from the other areas. And whatever area you choose to hyper focus on, you really go into that space and, intend whatever intention you have within that space. What is your experience in this area, as you could explain it to people about hypnosis?
Yeah, I started studying hypnosis, I think in 2007, 8, 9, I don't remember, back in the day anyway. So I was studying that. I studied that online. Then I went to the US. I took a training there for a week. And then I kept on, studying and studying and studying. And I realized that hypnosis is not just one thing. It's like, if you really want to be good at what you're doing, you need to constantly add more tools, more um, more approaches to what you're doing and to your work, because there's no one approach that helps everybody. And so, to answer your question, hypnosis is very much a method, as it is a state, as it is a accumulation of different interventions, types of interventions, I would say. And so that's why it's so difficult. If you ask 10 hypnotists to define what is hypnosis, they will give you 10 different answers. I've done this with a summit, not with everybody, but with some of the speakers. I ask them, tell me what is hypnosis in your own words. And I can tell you, I've had very beautiful and then very interesting answers to this question. The easiest answer I found to the question of what is hypnosis is actually something that I read in an article which had nothing to do with hypnosis. It was actually a guy who was an engineer for special effects for movies in Hollywood, and he summarized for me in my head, in my mind. He summarized perfectly what is hypnosis in just 2 words: suspended disbelief. So if you can actually suspend somebody's disbelief, like with the dental work, if you can suspend their disbelief that they won't have any discomfort, then you can go ahead and do the intervention with no discomfort. I like that very much, because it's so easy for people to understand and to relate to. Of course, then I can add some more explanations, but that to me would be like the very essence of it.
One of the most important places and regular places that hypnosis is used is in the area of cessation of any type of habit, such as smoking, such as addictions, such as eating habits, and all of those. And I think part of that is also looking at how a person is associated, the smoking or any habit that they want to continuously do, but it doesn't work with their life process, in a sense, and how they can bring that into a sense of shifting the belief system, in a sense, so that the association with pleasure is different. I've used hypnosis a lot with phobias, obviously, phobia, dog phobia, any of the phobias that I've used hypnosis, and it's been miracle magical in using in all of that. And I've used it a lot with trauma, because I work with childhood trauma a lot. And not only going back to the memories, but also shifting the memories, or even the way that the person has thought about themselves. And hypnosis has worked a lot in those areas. Yeah. And that's why when I created the model of awareness integration, I brought hypnosis into it in many of the sections where hypnosis would really be beneficial as an intervention.
Yeah. And it's so interesting, because, when we talk about hypnosis, we talk about, getting access to that level of the mind where you normally don't have conscious access. And every time when I explain to people of what hypnosis is, I say, imagine a room which is split in half, and in between the 2 halves, there is a door. One side of the room is dark and the other one is lit. Now, the dark would be the subconscious, the little bit the conscious mind. So when you open the door, it's the light of the consciousness that enters the subconscious, and then you become aware of all the stuff that is there, which is making you feel the way you do. When it's so simple, because when you're doing hypnosis, it's basically like touching that subconscious realm and uncovering or discovering, I would say, all of the beliefs and values which are actually the root cause of anyone's problem, whether it's phobia, whether it's addiction, whether it's whatever it is. In the end, it's just a belief or a value that person has, which gets triggered in a certain way and then explodes into an issue, for instance, if that is an issue.
Some of the fears that I've heard also people have from it is because hypnosis has been also utilized in a lot of the, entertainment and shows. And So therefore, someone thinks that if they are being hypnotized, or it's as if like they're being brainwashed, or and they have no control, because sometimes they've watched it in an entertainment level on a stage where, they've asked them to just sit there and, bark like a dog, and the person has barked like a dog. So it's like, oh my God, I'm giving up my, my agency as a human being. That's not accurate. Like, there's no way that you can ask anybody to do anything if they really don't want to under hypnosis. This is more about whether when they are willing to, and they actually don't have access to that part, that they, like you said, the door opens to have access to the part that you're willing, not that you're going to do anything that you're not willing.
Yeah. And I've asked so many people about, is stage hypnosis good or bad? And again, different answers, very varied answers. But one answer which I, stuck with me said, it depends on the type of stage hypnosis, of course, on one hand, but the nuance which I got from this answer was, maybe stage hypnosis is not that good for hypnosis as a field. However, hypnosis as a field wouldn't be what it is today if it were not for stage hypnosis, because stage hypnosis actually kind of pushed forward and popularized hypnosis much more than if it weren't for it, right? So it's kind of like, it was so stage hypnosis did a lot of marketing for the field of hypnosis as a whole. The fact that some people use it in a not a white collar way, let's put it that way, can put a dent in it. But in the end of the day, is how can we get this out to more people so they can learn, that they can actually get you and I both have met people who had phobias for ages, 10, 20, 30, 50 years. And then they come to you, they do a session and it's done, and they can't believe it. It's like, no, this is just not happening. I've wasted 40 years of my life with this stupid phobia for you to take it away in like, 20 minutes or whatever. It's just, some people are not ready for that, really.
I remember, for example, at the time where I used to smoke a cigarette for many, many years. And I remember going to someone which did the hypnosis, and I just wasn't ready. And we did the hypnosis and went through. And although it got me a little bit more to the ready sense, but I also remember when I was ready and I went to hypnosis, then it worked magical because not only that I was ready, but then it worked through not having the craving. So this really showed me more that there's no way that in hypnosis can do something to you when you don't want to, because this is part of the fear that goes up. I have a lot of people when they call me and it's like, well, I'm not hypnotizable. And how do you know that? Well, because I don't want to be in, somebody else having the control of my mind. And it's like, well, no, you don't have the control of your mind. We're actually giving you the control of your mind.
Exactly. I tell them the exact same thing. And I say, listen, if you really had control over your mind, why would you come to me? Why would you even talk to me if you really had control? You're coming to me because you don't actually have control. That's why you're coming to me, to help you get control back. But it's so skewed in people's mind. It's like, oh, however, also on the other end of the spectrum, every now and then I have some people who come in like, oh, please, take complete control over my mind, fix it, and, wake me up when you're done. And it's like, okay, it doesn't work that way. It's like, there's nothing to wake you up from except for sleep. But
I know I've had people who come in and say, I've had a really bad relationship with so-and-so. I keep thinking about him. Can you do something with me under hypnosis that I don't ever think of him again? So it's like, lobotomy, there's not much we can do with that. So I do see, and part of, I think what I like for people who are hearing or watching us is to know that there's a lot of myths around hypnosis. But the workability of it for so many years is astonishing, and what it can do is astonishing. And that's why the first thing I said is, if it could take us through being so much in control of our mind and body to take us through operations, you can imagine how we could do it on any other level. How can people find you in 1 minute or so? If you can kind of let us know, how can people find the summit? How can they register?
The best things for people to find me right now is actually to click on your link and go to our website for the Hypnosis Master Summit. There you'll not only find me, but you'll find over 40 amazing speakers from all around the world ready to share with you their knowledge and skill and expertise. And so if you're listening to this, if you're curious or interested about hypnosis, you make sure to click on that link, which is going to be in the description of this podcast. Click on that link, go to the website. You can register for free. You don't have to pay anything unless you want to, of course. You can listen and watch all of the presentations live and 24 hours after. And if you want to have lifetime access, there's going to be a very small fee there. So go ahead and sign up. And if you want to reach out to me by email, it's contact@eugenepopa.com, EUGENPOPA.com.
Beautiful. Anything we haven't said and you really want people to know?
Yes, very much so. The root of all problems is that people take themselves too seriously. Chill, relax a little bit, and then things will get better.
I love it. Chill. We'll be right back, everyone. Thank you. In this Ask Me segment, I have a question from a beautiful woman who says that she's about to get married in a couple of days, and she is scared and anxious, and every moment is thinking, I'm going to break this off. I can't do it. So, and she says that everything checks out. They've been a great mate for all this time. There's nothing that the other person has done for her to even question. But now that she's getting married and she's going to tie the knot, the anxiety is there. So there's a phenomenon that we call cold feet. And I've experienced this with all of my couples that I work with, regardless of whether it's the female or male. Usually either both partners or certainly one of the partners has the cold feet, which means that they get very anxious right before they sign the signature, where the signature dotted line, so that they have to put themselves into a different level of commitment. So a lot of the anxiety is about an unknown that might happen. What would happen when I am married and it's not easy to just say goodbye, I'm done and I'm walking out? What if I lose my freedom? What if the structure that we're going into, I cannot get out? And what if my life changes completely from a single person, then going and living with someone? And what if I don't like their quirks? And what if I, at this point, if I get upset with them, I come home and I have some time away? How am I going to create my separate time? All of these questions are very valid. And they are part of the transition that we go from one stage of life to another. And I think we go through those transitions all the time. When we go from one school to another, when we go from high school to college, from college to work, from one work to another, and from singlehood to marriedhood. And even from, not being a parent to a parenthood. I think every single phase of life, as we have an idea about it, we have some sort of fantasy about it. But when it actually comes to the time, we know it's an unknown concept. So the ability to be with the unknown, it becomes very important at that time. And knowing that if we have rationalized, you've looked at things in a logical way, you've also considered your thoughts and your emotions, and you have a feeling of safety and connectedness, and you know that, as if you ask about 20 people or 10 people around you, that they also value and see the goodness in your relationships and the next phase of life, then it's more of understanding the unknownness that you're going into. Some people have faith in the religion or God, or some people just gets to have a faith with, I'm not always in control of everything, and I've done everything that I could, and the rest I have to leave it by chance and hope, and have the faith that it's all going to come out and turn out well. So usually we pass through those couple of days or weeks of the cold feet in that way. Sometimes the cold feet or the anxiety that we actually call cold feet is is important to look at right before you go into a different level of commitment, to reevaluate the commitment and see if all the boxes are checked. If you've looked over everything, if there's something that is missing, if there's something that you kind of like pushed yourself into this commitment, but you weren't really ready, or there were areas that were important, but you didn't really take into consideration. So maybe it's important to take those anxiety feelings also seriously and do your reevaluation. Don't do your reevaluation in your head. Do it with someone who loves you, who knows the person, who is to your benefit. Do it with a therapist. Do it with someone of a confidant, so you can kind of like talk out loud, bounce it off. And as you hear yourself going through and reevaluating and coming back to the term of, this is the one, I'm going to be excited about tying the knots and creating an amazing relationship for the rest of my life. Or that, whoops, I need to cut it off now before I put myself into a situation that I know ultimately I have to get out. So I need to do this before I make more of a price for my life than the other person. So it's a good time to reevaluate, but most of the time you probably made the right decision. So go for it. Welcome back, everyone. I'm Dr. Foojan Zeine, and I'm excited to have Dr. Sharon Grossman with me. She's the founder of Exhausted Extraordinary Method, a 3-step method to unblock your mind, reshape your thinking, and return to joy to your work in 90 days. As a psychologist, coach, and author of the international bestseller, The 7E Solution to Burnout, Dr. Sharon works with 6-figure executives, entrepreneurs, and professionals in high-stress industries who are struggling with anxiety, overwhelm, and burnout. And she will share tips and strategies as a keynote speaker on her weekly podcast, Optimize Your Life, and the Woman in Medicine Badass Radio Show. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. It's great to be here.
Absolutely. So talk about burnout. Oh my God. I know that in our field, I think in every field, but definitely in the field of medicine, people are truly burned out, especially after COVID. And it's been hard. I know myself, I've been working nonstop from home, from Zoom, back to back with clients, and that everybody's need has been. And then I talked to a lot of other people who are in the medical industry, who are in different types of businesses. It's just that the whole system changed, where, the way that we were used to, and then we had to shift it. And coming back to it, it's been harder. I've saw in some of the in the news that many people, the nurses, were just resigning because they were completely burned out. There were medical doctors, and I know you work with companies and high stress entrepreneurs and executives. Give us solution. How do we handle this burnout?
Well, this is definitely, as you say, a phenomenon, and something that's been on the rise, especially since COVID. And I think for a variety of different reasons. And one of the things that I was really struck by is that, I don't know if you found this too, but like during COVID, a lot of people really burned out. And then there were people who did really well. People who said, COVID's the best thing that's happened to me in terms of my business, or in terms of, if they're an employee, that they got to work from home finally, and they've been wanting to do that forever. And then you had the people who, whether it's healthcare or some other industry, where it became even more stressful. And there were all these different factors that came into the mix, and people were burning out left and right. And so one of the things that I really like to focus on is, first of all, what is burnout, for people to really understand it, and then to help them understand why some people burn out while others aren't. Because I think there is something going on there, right? It's not like across the board, everybody is experiencing some circumstance and then they're all burning out. They're having different experiences. So we need to look at that a little bit more closely. And so what I've found is that burnout is really multifactorial, and people burn out for different reasons. And because of that, it's really important to be able to, as I say, decode your burnout, figure out like what is going on for you that's leading you to burnout, because you're different from other people. And if we really look at what burnout is, it's chronic stress, very simply. So I think of it like an onion where you have layer upon layer of stress that's just accumulated, and you're not doing enough to de-stress. So it just keeps piling on. And sometimes it's because of external circumstances, like if your job demands that you work really crazy hours, or the work that you do is very emotionally draining and you just have to keep showing up day after day, and that just kind of piles on. It could be from that, but it can also be from a lot of other factors. And so everybody needs to figure out what's going on for them, and based on that, find appropriate solutions. Because one of the things that happens is people will take a broad solution. Like they'll say, oh, I just need to go on vacation. And so they'll take off a couple of weeks, and, you know, it takes them like the first 5 days just to de-stress and really get into relaxation mode. And then before you know it, they're back to work and they're doing everything the same way that they had done before. And so then they burn out a second time and a third time. And that's why it's really important to be able to customize your solution based on what it is that got you burned out in the first place. You can't just take a few days off and then come back and expect that everything's going to be great. So that's like a really important takeaway message that I would say to people before we even talk about specific tips.
As you were talking, this showed up for me that many people who I've worked with, which they hit burnout, I've noticed also that they're on the rat race, the wheel, and they're going. And usually I ask them, how come now is the burnout time? Like, how come it wasn't yesterday or a month before or a year before when you've been doing something like, 10 years, 15 years, how come now? One of the things I keep hearing from people, Sharon, is that they say that at one point I looked at and it was like, okay, this is hopeless. Like, there's nothing that I can do, that as long as I'm doing the same thing, I'm not going anywhere. And suddenly that kind of realization like hits them. And then it just that drive or that energy that was pushing them, although it was beyond their, their physical limits or all of that, but suddenly something like just, that's it. And then their body breaks. I was working with somebody yesterday and they were only Zooming again. I need to get up and go to the gym. And part of what we were seeing that, the burnout was there. It was like he was working so hard for 5 years and the money wasn't coming, and he kept going and going and going. And finally, this realization that this way that I'm doing is not going to work, suddenly and then he collapsed for almost 2 weeks and we had to go to the hospital. So there's something that also changes, not only that we keep going and going, but there's a place where either the physical body or the belief system kind of like breaks down. Can you share a little bit about what your thoughts are on what I said and your experience?
Yeah, I love that question that you pose. I think it's brilliant, and like nobody's talking about it, right? And it really shines a light on the primary symptom that we see with burnout, which is emotional exhaustion. And how this is different from physical exhaustion, where you were saying before, like sometimes your body just gives out, is we often see that when people are burned out at work, they'll come home and then maybe their friends reach out and they're like, hey, you want to go hang out? And, if that's really appealing to you, somehow you find the energy to go and do this other activity. It's kind of like, if I do anything but work, then I'm fine, right? That's a real telltale sign that there's something going on with work specifically. And I love the idea of, the reason why now is because, maybe they've lost hope, their perception of whatever they were pursuing has changed. And that just really reiterates the fact that burnout is about your mental state, right? So when you think about it as, oh, well, if I do this, then it's going to be great, and you're kind of on fire, then you have the energy. But as soon as you're like, oh, this is never going to work, then you've kind of given up, and then all your energy is just gone, right? And so it's very much tied to your mental state and your emotional state, more so than your physical state. That said, I mean, burnout, as we know, because there is that mind-body connection, burnout absolutely affects the body as well. And so when people are really burned out, right, and we think of burnout on a spectrum. So if you're like really at the end of your rope, we start to see the body breaking down. And I really think about that as your body communicating with you. This is your wake-up call to say, like, the way that you're doing this is not working. And you're not listening to all the signs that we're giving you, and your body just starts screaming at you. And they're like, listen, like, it's when you start to feel pain, that's your body sending you a message that something's wrong. And it's really your job to like listen to that and do something different, right? And oftentimes what happens with, you were saying, like, the people who are in that overdrive is they are just so programmed to work that only when they cannot physically do it anymore and they have to go to the hospital, that's when they stop, because they can't, not because they're listening to like, oh, maybe this is not working. And sometimes that's what your body has to do. And unfortunately, that's really traumatic for a lot of people to have to go through.
One of the things that I've noticed with clients, it's been more like, I've watched them suddenly lose interest in what they're doing. So whatever they're doing now changed from, oh, it's fine, it's exciting, you know, I find some pleasure in it, to I just don't have any pleasure, but I have to. So it's almost like that's how, those are the signs that I see. Then the accumulation of stress it's no longer that stress comes and leaves. It's now the accumulation of stress almost, and that leads to burnout. What is your experience as you see that, you know, the transition that you go from doing something that you do love or your pleasure, or you're doing it daily, and then it starts to, because when they actually fall physically, it's almost like at the end of the burnout. But burnout doesn't just appear one day. It's a cycle. It's something that is progressive, right?
Yes, absolutely. So I think it's interesting, right? Because sometimes we think about burnout is, you know, as we use it colloquially, it's like, oh, I'm just so burned out. It sounds like you really don't like doing the work that you do. And sometimes that's true. But often we also have people who are those overachievers who are pouring like hours and hours and hours of themselves into their work every single week. So they're doing like 70, 80 plus hours of work, right? And they love it. And they're so passionate about it and they're so into it. And it's not because of like a lack of interest that they're burning out, but more so because they are just out of balance, right? And you need that balance in order to stay healthy.
Right. I was seeing the lack of interest as a symptom of it. Like I've noticed, like I'm one of those overachievers who I work about 100 hours a week. And I've noticed it's almost like I love everything I do. And then at one point I'm like, I just don't want to do this today. And, you know, then it's the next week and I'm like, you know, I'm pushing it back. So the lack of interest is telling me that I'm tired. You know, and I need to shift, because when I rest and I go on a vacation, I come back, the same thing now is exciting again. Yes. So there were two pieces that I was looking at, and I just wanted your opinion on it, whether is it that sometimes you love everything you do, but the sign of lack of interest is the sign of getting into a burnout. And sometimes you actually have a lack of interest, but you have to do something so you get burnt out.
Well, I think what happens is part of that mental, emotional exhaustion, which we see with burnout, makes it harder for you to focus, which now means that it takes you longer to do the same tasks. And I don't know if that's what you're noticing before you go on vacation. So then it just takes so much more effort. And then maybe you don't want to do it because it's that much more effort, you know, but once you've rested and you can like do things really quickly, you're like, boom, like I'm on fire. I can do this. It's fun, but you don't want to like have to like exert that much extra effort to do the thing, because then it's not fun. right? And that could be your sign of saying like, okay, I've really tapped out my energy reserves. I need to scale back, or I need to slow down, or I need some time off to recalibrate. And we could certainly do that. But what I would say is that's kind of a yo-yo approach where we're going like till we're like totally empty, and then we recharge, and then we go again until we're totally empty. And then it's just like rinse and repeat. And I would say like, a better approach would be to find ways to recharge throughout. And that might mean maybe you don't work 100 hours and you find pockets of time where you're really recharging your battery as you go. So you don't reach that like level where now you have to go on vacation, right? And I often tell people to think about their own energy reserves or their way of engaging with their work in the same way that they think about their phone, right? So we own like this piece of plastic that we take really good care of. We plug it in because we want it to keep working for us, but then we don't do that for ourselves, right? And I think it's such an important piece of this, of success really, is if you think about how much of your mind you need to be online in order to be successful. You need to be able to focus. You need to be creative. You need to problem solve. You need to plan. Like there's so much that you rely on your mind for, and you obviously need energy. And if you're not going to like plug your phone in, quote unquote, right, then it's going to run out of juice. So, maybe there's a deeper issue there about like why you're running so hard, right? And that's some of the stuff that I get into with my coaching is there's always a reason why we do things in the way that we do it, right? We're always in a pattern. And so you want to identify what those patterns are, and you want to be able to find the solutions that are going to help you be more sustainable, so that you can have all of the success, but also have the balance and have the joy.
You talked about 7E solutions to burnout.
Yeah.
So is there any way that within period you can give us a little bit of those tips?
Yeah, for sure. So I'll give you a quick rundown. So the first E is all about emotional intelligence. And really the way to, in a nutshell, kind of think about it is it boils down into the self-awareness camp. So that's really being aware of, what is stressing me out. And one of the things we know is stress is about perception. So if you have certain thoughts about things, those are the things that are going to be actually stressing you out, not your circumstances. And so you have to be able to identify those thoughts in order to better manage your own mind. And so really, again, emotional intelligence is that combination of self-awareness and self-management. And that helps not just with your thoughts, but obviously your thoughts actually dictate your emotions. So it all kind of blends in together there. So that's a really important piece to start with. And I usually have people start with that. The second E is about empowerment. And that's really about, when we're burned out, we feel very disempowered, especially when we believe that the circumstances of our job, our industry, our career, our boss, those are the things that are bringing on burnout for us. And we don't recognize that there's a lot of other, as I said in the beginning, burnout's multifactorial. If we're not understanding that it's our belief system, that it's our programming, that it's our personality, that there's all these other pieces that we're bringing into the mix, we feel like it's happening to us and there's nothing that we can do. So it's important to find ways to feel re-empowered, if you will. And one of the ways that's really helpful with this is to look at the hierarchy of needs, by Maslow, and kind of see like what need is not being met and what need are you trying to overcompensate for by working so hard in order to be an achiever and have that success, that maybe you're fooling yourself really, because we've seen so many cases of people who have found amazing success and they're so unhappy. So that's part of the second E. The third one is all about engagement. So this is how you engage with your work. Are you, as you said before, like really engaged with your work? Maybe overly engaged, where you're spending so much energy that you're running out of steam? Are you on the other end of the spectrum where you're disengaged, probably because you're under challenged or you find the work boring? And by the way, that's another reason why people burn out. It's not always because they, don't like their work, but sometimes it's just not challenging enough. And we got to find ways to make it more challenging, right? So figuring out ways that you can be optimally engaged. And some of that has to do with time management, so that you're not distracted, that you can focus more. And sometimes it's just about like increasing the level of challenge and getting into that state of flow. E number 4 is about efficacy. So this really is about how you see yourself, right? So it's your self-confidence, but ultimately it's your beliefs about your ability to do your work. And when you have a failure at work, what are you making that mean? And that can lead you to be in this negative self-efficacy spiral. Or, sometimes we have the opposite thing happen where we have a success and we feel so confident that we're like, I don't need to do that much preparation for my presentation. And then you totally like screw it up because you're not prepared. So it's really looking at like what's happening and how to learn from your past mistakes. And then we go into energy. So I've mentioned some of that before, but it's really about like managing your energy, and something to consider there, because often we have high achievers who aren't really investing time in self-care. I always start with what are the mindset obstacles to engaging in more self-care. And for a lot of people, it's that they don't think they're important enough, right? So there's a lot of self-worth issues that get tied up in this. They're people pleasers, so they're putting other people ahead of themselves. And then there's no time left for me, but it's like, if you're doing that, and then you're doing it all wrong, so there's all these kind of issues that we're looking at with regards to your energy and boundary setting and things like that. And then E number 6 is effort. So that's the idea of working smarter, not harder. And I also bring in some like Buddhist principles on smart effort. And then finally, it's E number 7 is enlightenment. And the way that I like to think about that is just how do you lighten your load? And so much of that is really just through the mind. And one way that we can do that is through mindfulness and meditation and things of that nature. So that's kind of in a short summary. It's a lot in there.
The 7E solution to burnout. Sharon Grossman, thank you so much for being with me. You can find the book in Amazon and everywhere else, and you can find Dr. Sharon Grossman at drsharongrossman.com. It was a pleasure having you on the show.
Thank you so much for having me. It was really lovely to talk to you. And I love the way that you're thinking about this subject. It's very refreshing.
Beautiful. And I hope to have you on the show again. For all of you who are out there, create an amazing life for yourself and everyone else. And until next week, bye-bye.